Sorry. Minister, first of all, I'm glad to be here today to speak on the issue of equality for everyone in our society, and to wish yourself and everyone else in the community and in all our communities a happy and joyous Pride weekend, particularly this weekend coming. I think you touched on many issues in your opening remarks, which I would concur with absolutely. And I think particularly for someone who lives and grew up in rural Ireland and in a very rural part of the country, where, certainly when I was growing up, the advancement that we've seen in the last even 10 years, but certainly in the last, I think, 7 years since the referendum on marriage equality, has been immense. And it has been immense, I think, in the mindset of older people particularly, and people who grew up in an Ireland which was very closed, which was very I suppose dominated by a particular very orthodox kind of Christian view, and that dominated their thinking and their outlook on life. And I think we have come a huge distance, and in the main, the reason for that was because young people spoke to the older generation and said to that older generation, look, it's not like that. We have experienced life and it is different, and you have to, give us our space and our equality and our sense of worth in our society. And I think that has happened. And while we have had, of course, regressive incidents, and you mentioned the incident in Sligo, my own constituency, where 2 men lost their lives earlier this year. And it was interesting because I suppose being a TD in the constituency, I got calls from various constituents about it, and there was one man who called me, and he was extremely aggressive toward the person who had been arrested for this particular incident, because this person was from outside the country. And while he ranted and raved about that, I remembered that I had met this man before, and the last time I had met him a few years previously, he had a similar rant and rave about people who were homosexual. And it just, I suppose the contradiction of that. And at the same time, I recognised it wasn't a contradiction at all. It was true to where he had been and the kind of Ireland that he felt he wanted to go back to, that we were losing our values, as one of the sentiments he expressed. And I think what we have done is gained much better values than we ever had. And I certainly hope that people will recognise that and come to understand that, and recognise that, the advancement or the day in the sun for any sector of our society does not put any other sector of it into the shadows. And it shouldn't. And holding up one particular group of people in society and saying to them, look, you have an equal space, doesn't mean that you're taking anything away from anyone else. It's not a zero-sum game. And unfortunately, some people think it is. In actual fact, it's a multiplier. It enhances everyone's lives when we give everybody a better space. And I think we have to recognise and understand that. I also just, when I think of it, I think it was this day week, last Thursday, I was coming out from having a bite to eat in the canteen, and there was an event going on in the corridor. And Senator David Norris was there, and I know he has been ill in the recent past, but we were unveiling a portrait, which is very unusual in these houses to unveil a portrait of somebody while they're still with us, but in recognition of his valued contribution, not just to the Oireachtas, but to Irish society in general, because he was, more than anyone else, the flag bearer for these particular issues, and done so much for so many people, and was such a huge example and such a positive example. And I know that we all wish him well in the future as we go forward. And I think it will be a stark reminder to everyone as we pass through these corridors that equality hangs on the wall there, and that we have to make sure that we stand with it and stand for it. So, Minister, in conclusion, I also want to mention that it is important that we have legislation around all of these issues. And I know the hate crime legislation is advancing, and we need to make sure it advances. And at the same time, it's not just about legislation. It's about changing mindsets. It's about changing people's understanding of what it is to be human. And what it is to be human more than anything else, and what separates us as humans from every other, I suppose, living species on the animals and everyone else in the world, is that we have this ability to communicate. We have an ability to speak to each other. We have an ability to understand. We have an ability to have emotions, to have all those things and to work those things out. And we need to use them. And unfortunately, some people don't want to do that. They want to almost set civilization aside, and, you know, and it was mentioned before by yourself and even by other colleagues here about regression in other parts of the world where we have a very fascist agenda coming into play, and that is very negative. And that negative fascist agenda has to be held to account for the harm that it has done for so many people around the globe, and we have to ensure that it does not take hold anywhere in our society. So, Minister, I leave it at that, just again to wish yourself and everyone else in our community, from all aspects, of whatever they identify themselves as, a very, very happy Pride Week. Gurbaige.